This is Pre-Algebra Chapter 1, Lesson 3, Order of Operations. Today you will be able to use the order of operations to evaluate expressions. The vocabulary word is order of operations. In the past, you used an acronym to represent the order of operations. I believe that was PEMDAS, P-E-M-D-A-S. Now, we are going to be using GEMDAS. Everything in this acronym should look familiar to you. The E for exponents, MD, multiplication and division, AS, addition and subtraction. The only thing that is different is the G, which brings us to our next vocabulary word, grouping symbols. Past, the only grouping symbols that you knew were parentheses, hence the P. But now we are going to be seeing other grouping symbols like brackets, and even fraction bars are considered grouping symbols now. So the order of operations, you will evaluate the expressions inside the grouping symbols. Then you will evaluate powers, multiply and or divide from left to right, and finally add or subtract from left to right. In this first example, we are evaluating the expression 4 times 20 plus 8 times 5 plus 4.8. Following the order of operations, we first look for grouping symbols. There are no grouping symbols. Then we look for exponents. There are no exponents. So we move on to multiplication or division starting on the left. Starting on the left, I notice that we have multiplication right here. 4 times 20, which equals 80. As I continue to the left, I find more multiplication, 8 times 5, which equals 40. Moving down to the next step, we have no more multiplication and no more division, so we are going to move on to addition and subtraction. Starting on the left side of the problem, we move toward the right, and I see addition right here. 80 plus 40, which equals 120, plus 4.8. And then we have another addition expression, 120 plus 4.8, which equals 124.8. Instead of these checkpoint problems, we are going to slide off to the side and do some examples with different types of grouping symbols, starting with parentheses. Let's simplify this expression. Using GEMDAS, we are first going to look for grouping symbols. I found parentheses. So I want to go in the parentheses first. Inside the parentheses, I have the expression 2 plus 7. That equals 9. And now I have to bring down the rest of the expression. So I'm bringing down the parentheses because there is an exponent attached, minus 10 times 2. Now we move on to E, exponents. Are there exponents in this expression? Yes, there are. 9 raised to the second power. That equals 81. And now we bring down the rest of the expression. D, multiplication or division. Starting on the left, do we see any multiplication? We do. Multiplication right here, 10 times 2, which equals 20. And now we bring down the rest of the expression. There's no more multiplication and there is no division, so we move on to addition and subtraction. I don't see any addition, but our last step is subtraction. 81 is 61. So your final answer is 61. Our next example will be using the grouping symbol brackets. To start this problem, we look for grouping symbols. I see brackets. When we go inside those brackets, there are more grouping symbols, parentheses. So the first thing we have to do is solve what's in both of these parentheses. 12 plus 2 is 14. Bring down the parentheses. And 10 minus 2 is 8. Bring down the parentheses. Now we can bring down the rest of the expression. We're not finished with the brackets yet, so bring down those brackets. Plus 6 minus 4 squared. We have not yet finished with our grouping symbols, so we're going back to the brackets. And we have another operation inside the brackets. 14 in parentheses next to 8 in parentheses is showing us multiplication. So we are going to multiply 14 and 8. 14 times 8 is 112. Now we've finished with our brackets. There's nothing left to simplify inside the brackets, so we just bring down the rest of our expression. So we have finished with G, so now we can move on to E, exponents. And I see 4 to the second power. 4 to the second power equals 16, and that is the only exponential part of this expression that I see, so we can bring down the rest of the problem. Now we move on to multiplication and division from left to right. Moving from left to right, I see no multiplication and no division, so we are going to go right to addition and subtraction. Starting on the left, I see 112 plus 6, which equals 118. Bring down the rest of the expression. 118 minus 16 equals 102. Our last grouping symbol example is going to be using a fraction bar as a grouping symbol. This example is going to combine all three grouping symbols: fraction bar, brackets, and parentheses. A fraction bar is considered a grouping symbol because it groups your expression into numerator and denominator. If you forget the difference between numerator and denominator, remember numerator north, denominator down. Let's start in the numerator. In the numerator, I see this whole section that's inside the brackets. So we need to simplify this whole section first. I like to simplify going up. So we're going to start in these brackets. And then within these brackets, I see more parentheses, so more grouping symbols. So we're going into these grouping symbols, and we are going to simplify 5 plus 3, which equals 8. Now we can rewrite the remaining expression. Okay, we are still in these brackets. I don't see any more grouping symbols inside the brackets, but now I see exponents. 8 to the second power. 8 to the second power is 64. So we got that. Now we have to rewrite the expression again. We are still working in these brackets, so we're still on G. We have 64 minus 4 in our brackets, which equals 60. And now we are done with the brackets. We don't need to rewrite them, but we do need to write the rest of the expression, which is 60 plus 12. And our last step is addition. 60 plus 12 equals 72. So that is our numerator. Now we can move down and simplify the denominator. Our denominator also has grouping symbols, but they're not as intense as the brackets. We just have some parentheses. In the parentheses, we have 12 minus 2, which equals 10. And then we bring down the rest of the problem. We are out of grouping symbols, but I see some exponents. Well, I see one exponent, 10 to the second power, which equals 100. And then we bring down the rest of the expression. We finished grouping symbols. We finished exponents. We are on to MD, multiplication and division. Starting on the left, we scroll to the right until we see some multiplication or division, which we have found right here. 22 times 3 equals 66. Bring down the rest of your expression. And now our last operation is subtraction. 100 minus 66 equals 34. So now we also have our denominator. So now we're going to put them together. Numerator 72 and our denominator 34. And now they are simplified and in one fraction bar. Are we finished? Nope. These are both even numbers, so this fraction needs to be simplified. Both of these numbers are divisible by 2, so we are going to start with 2. We're going to divide 72 by 2 and 34 by 2. 72 divided in half equals 36, and 34 divided by 2 equals 17. 36 is still even, but 17 isn't divisible by anything else because it is a prime number. So this is your final answer. In this section, example 3, we are evaluating variable expressions. So that means you have to substitute the value of the variable into the variable expression and then use the order of operations to solve. So we are going to use these as your checkpoint problems, starting with example A. Please solve A. If you got 27, you are correct. Now move on to B. I hope you didn't let example B trick you because they reverse the Y and the X. If you got 45, you are correct. Now moving on to checkpoint number 3. The final answer for number 3 is 15. If you got that, excellent job. And the last one, number 4. And your answer to number 4 is 6. Great job.